Hi everyone, and welcome to the Noona's Noonchi Deep Dive, being introspective into K-dramas from a mental health perspective. The red sleeve, that's why I wore red. Let's talk about the ending, shall we? So spoiler alert galore, yes. So if you haven't watched it yet, wait, hold off on watching this deep dive, because I have to talk about the ending. I went through my own stages of grief watching, particularly episode 17, when I was like, what am I watching? What's happening? The grief I felt. Right? And then the denial, no, this can't be happening, this can't be happening. Anger about, oh my gosh, this is happening. Bargaining, maybe not, maybe it's a dream. You know what I'm talking about if you've seen this, right? And then feeling a little bit depressed when I realized that's what happened or that's what I saw. Testing things out by talking about it with people, right? That's how you're like, hey, let's talk about the ending. Did this really happen? What's your interpretation? And then finally acceptance, which I'm not quite there yet, but talking about it will help, right? That is always helpful, talking things through, especially with people who have watched it. That's why K-dramas can be so much fun, talking about what you experienced together. So that said, there's a term called equal finality. Equal finality in psychology, which means there are many pathways, journeys, events, circumstances in life, many different ways of getting to the same ending or same outcome. Deok Im's outcome was her death. According to history, she died young. Spoiler alert. And she died from an illness, according to history. And yes, the same year, I think just maybe 4 to 5 months after the death of her beloved son, the Crown Prince. So there's a lot of grief there as well, right? But I don't necessarily believe that she died because of her grief. That was part of it. She died with the grief, not because of the grief. Though that can happen, but not because of grief, usually because you're not taking care of yourself or you're so depressed and you die because of just neglect on yourself. That's probably part of what happened, but according to history, it was an illness. But I believe equal finality, that same outcome could have happened should she have decided to stay and choose her life as a court lady. Let's go back to that. Here's the comfort I want to provide you. The golden nuggets of wisdom that Deok Im shared, particularly in episode 16, and her thoughts about feeling happy and feeling sad some days and other days, right? Choosing to be happy one day and knowing that she may be sad another. That, my folks, is the reality of life. The dualities of life, because of our emotions and the things that we're experiencing, because of the things we are experiencing in life, the dualities of emotions. Nothing is black and white. So right then she was dispelling a cognitive distortion of going, I'm sad today, so I'm going to be sad. I'm happy today, so it's going to be happy. That's not what she said. She was indicating today's about feeling happy. The king visited her. This is after she announced her pregnancy. And then tomorrow I may be sad, because there were pockets of definitely sadness that we saw because it was lonely. We saw a good glimpse of a concubine life, by the way. Not all that, Now, it's great to be in favor with the king, but think about what we saw with Deok Im. Her character being so strong-willed, energetic, vibrant, really resolute about her principles of why she wanted to stay a court lady. It was not because she was so much about being a court lady. That was part of it. But the other part was she knew she was not always going to be the king's number one. He loved her the most, and according to history, she was definitely his favorite. But he had other wives, concubines, right? And that's difficult to watch, right? That is, I don't know how anybody can do that, to be honest with you. Because at the very end of the day, women want to be loved. Yes. Men respected. There's a love and respect cycle there, and I talk about this couples. Now, we're talking the day and age of 2022. I get that. But innately, women want to feel, be loved, and cherished galore. Men want to be respected. That is just part of our makeup, okay? And I want to say that, and I see that still consistently to this day. That said, Deok Im wanted to be loved at the very end. Now, she was loved. And definitely, I believe he did a great job of showing his tremendous affection for her, dedication, but there are many duties that stood in the way. Him as a king, as what he had to do for his country, knowing that there were going to be other concubines to come. But she died fairly young, and their love story was fairly short. That's according to history. But again, the dualities of life, that she chose this life, folks. Here's the piece that we can find in her decision. She chose it. He allowed her that choice, which I loved. He's like, I'll let you go tonight. This is in his bedroom, episode 16. But you'll never see me again. And she made the choice. And on her deathbed, she says it again. She's like, didn't you know me by now? Because she never really said it, right? Why didn't she say, I love you to the king? Why didn't she say, oh my gosh, you're mine. I want to be all yours. No. She says it, repeats it. Yeah, I'm yours. But she was never really fully, he was never really fully hers, right? And she says to her best friends the truth, that she has to really put up a strong front for herself to be strong. Otherwise, succumbing to all that would lead her into a state of depression, and I do believe that. And that is why how Deok Im was able to be strong. Part of that strength to be, show this strong front of, okay, I'm not going to tell you I love you because I got to protect myself, even though I'm here for you, dedicating my love to you, having a son for you and other kids as well, was her way of protecting herself. And I do believe that's the wear and tear on your body, by the way. That's difficult. So living that life for a long time, should she have lived longer, might have been very difficult. And she could have gone into a state of depression, because that's just too hard, right? To suppress all that emotion. Maybe she would have given in and said it, but even at the very end, she doesn't even say it. I love that. I'm just going to be true to that, because that was her character. She showed it. But, we need the words too. So just learn from that example. People want to hear the words, I love you. That's very important. Saying that to your beloved ones, family members, and kids. But again, my whole point of that, about this deep dive, is the dualities of life. How Deok Im's life, she was at peace with her decision. Yes, she was. But just because you're at peace because you made a decision doesn't mean you're going to be happy-go-lucky all the time. That's just not realistic. That's what we want. But I do believe you could be at peace knowing, okay, I chose this, but man, it's hard. Oh my God, I'm traumatized by this. I can think of many examples in my life. Perhaps you can too. And that's just the reality of life. The way her life ended was very realistic. Equal finality is at play here. Many different pathways. She could have chose the pathway of a court lady and stayed true, but she would have perhaps died the same way from her illness, according to history. But sad, because she never got to be with the king and be with her loved one. Does that make sense? Because that's also gut-wrenching, knowing all the concubines he was with and she's not with him. So she made that choice. I'm going to be one of your many concubines. I know she was definitely his favorite, but she made that choice. But choosing a court lady could have been life full of sadness as well. Serving him and the concubines. Oh, I can't imagine doing that. Can you? So that's the purpose of my deep dive today, to really look at the fact that Deok Im's life has an ending that perhaps we didn't want, but there are many pathways to that ending. And that's just the way life can be, right? That there's no one way, no linear way, beginning, middle, and end, to do this way. Her life could have been very different should she had made another choice. And that's my point. And choosing to be happy, even when things look sad, knowing that there are times that you will be sad in a peaceful decision can happen. But staying true to the choice that you made is very important. And that's what Deok Im did on her deathbed, indicating that. Like almost saying, duh, king, I could have run away. I love that line. I could have run away, but I chose not to. And going back to episode 11 real quick, she was really, really struggling because her beloved court lady Sel pointed out, you're in love with him. Why don't you just go with him? It wasn't that simple, because she knew the life that was going to be waiting for her, right, as a concubine. So she waited as long as she could until, honestly, she decided to give in to her love for him. And in the end, yes, she did love him. So that said, folks, how can we dispel cognitive distortions of black and white thinking, polarized thinking, one way, not the highway? Can't be like, you can't do that way. You can't think like that. It's got to be understanding the dualities of today. This is the way it's going to look. Wow, it looks grim. But I know that I'm going to stay resolute. This is what I chose, and this is why I want to do it. And then, wow, something rejoiceful happens. Something great happens in your life. They're like, this is why I chose it. Can you remember those times? That's what I need you to look at. But I also need you to accept the times that are hard, because that is part of life, and that's good for your mental health to know that. So it doesn't devastate you when it happens. I'm building your tolerance, right, for your resilience sake. Thank you for watching Noona's Noonchi Deep Dive, being introspective, examining ourselves through the world of K-dramas from a mental health perspective.